It could be argued that no NCAA department provides more meaningful services to sports information directors at all levels around the country, more than the department that David Worlock oversees: media coordination and statistics. Just recently completing his 20th year at the NCAA, Dave clearly has earned a spot as a result of all of his work in the CoSIDA Hall of Fame. Worlock works primarily with men's postseason basketball and is responsible for media coordination at all tournament rounds all the way through the Final Four. Worlock started his career as SID at his alma mater, Henderson State. That's where he worked until joining the NCAA in 2001. Worlock is a member of the selection panel for the Kurt Gowdy Media Award and is a past member of the Harlan Hill Award Selection Committee. CoSIDA is proud to welcome David Worlock as a member of the Hall of Fame Class 2020.
Well, the first memorable moment as an athletics communicator that comes to mind is from my early days in college at Henderson State University. My advisor told me that the school sports information director had seen and liked something I had written for the school newspaper and wanted to visit with me about a work study position. My first reaction was, cool, what's a sports information director? So we set up a time to meet, and it was at that time that I had known what I wanted to do my entire life from the time I was a small kid. I just didn't know what an SID was. So I ended up working for Steve Eddington my final 3 years of school. And then a year after I graduated, I replaced him as Henderson's SID. And my relationship with Steve evolved from supervisor to mentor to second father to dear friend. And that started me on my career path. So I consider the most significant of my many memories. And I'm internally grateful for Steve and his family for taking a chance on me and guiding me, which is something he continues to do to this day. My other memories focus on student athletes and coaches and their accomplishments, and especially how they handled the tougher moments, because it's much easier when you win. But there are good examples, from just the past few years, that stand out to me. First, the way the North Carolina players responded to the heartbreak of the 2016 championship and handled all the questions throughout the season the following year, and even at the 2017 Final Four, and then won that title. And then the 2019 Virginia team was one of my favorite redemption stories ever. To feel the pain of being on the wrong side of history, so to speak, the year prior, and then to return the next year and win it the way they did was great. Getting down double digits points to the 16 seed in the first round, and then closing it out with those great memorable wins over Purdue, Auburn, and Texas Tech was truly inspiring. And then more recently, just last month, the Gonzaga-UCLA game from this year's Final Four will go down as one of the greatest games in tournament history, if not all of college basketball history. But one of my bigger takeaways was the grace with which the players from both teams displayed in the moments after the game. Again, truly inspirational, and more proof that old guys like me can learn from young people, and how I can tie that what I do for a living with raising my two young boys. My kids wanted to talk about Jalen Suggs' shot the next day, but I made it a point to talk about the dignity in which both teams responded to the outcome of that game. Let's say I would be most proud of probably doing exactly what I set out to do from the time I was a kid. My whole life, I was obsessed with stats and box scores, game recaps, and so on. Lots of my friends were huge sports fans just like me, but when the game ended, they moved on with their lives, and I wanted to read accounts of writers who were there. I wanted to get perspective of the participants. I was wise enough to know that I wouldn't be playing sports beyond high school, so I figured I'd be a writer or a broadcaster. That was before I found out what an SID was, and of course that changed everything. Being a D2 SID at Henderson allowed me to keep writing and even do some play-by-play for various sports. The other thing I'm really proud of is that I listened and followed the advice given to me, by others, starting with my mom and dad. They told me something that would be repeated by others, including people like Bill Hancock, who, I replaced at the NCAA in terms of being a media coordinator for the Final Four. And they said, surround yourself with good people and you'll overcome every obstacle. And it turns out that included someone as green as I was in 2006, being placed in charge of media operations at the Final Four. All that went off and has been going off since then because of the people who are in my corner helping me. Everything I've achieved is because I took that advice to heart. So I'm definitely proud of, for being a good listener. When Facebook came around, I don't know if you guys know, but I grew up in Germany, and my dad was in the military, and we were one of the few people that actually stayed put for a long period of time. I was there for first grade to fourth grade, and then back stateside for about 2.5 years, and then right after seventh grade, we moved back to Augsburg, Germany, and I graduated from high school there. And so people were coming in and out of my life all the time. I had different best friends in junior high than I did early in high school and senior year in high school, and kept in touch with some of them, my closer friends. But then Facebook opened up, the opportunity to reconnect with lots of people. And the one thing that always made me smile was that people who I hadn't seen since like 1984 or heard from or whatever said, "I can't believe you're doing that. That's what you do for a living. That's just exactly what you always wanted to do." And that kind of ties to what my answer to that previous question was, that this is what I've always known and loved, and so to be able to live that out is special. I think when it comes to my career, I'd reiterate the advice that was given to me by family, friends, and colleagues. Things like don't take shortcuts, no job is too small, find a lot of work you love and pursue it, and believe in yourself. I'm not sure I always did that. I've always struggled with being insecure. Most people don't know that. I always did my best to hide it. So I may have hammered that home to my younger self a little harder, that that you got this, you're capable. Just like I said, work hard, and don't be above doing anything. As for my life, I'd point back to my quote in my senior yearbook when, for some reason, instead of saying something wise, which is more typical of me, I tried to be more profound and said, "May you always have the freedom to be yourself." And that ties to surrounding yourself with good, strong people. It doesn't just apply to your career. It's helped me in all aspects of life, which can be hard and heartbreaking. But when you have great friends like I do, you're quickly picked up, and the people you're most close to are the ones that take you as you are and understand and accept your flaws, of which I have many. No one does that more than my wife, Andrea. She's a total saint. And for the past 27 years, she's loved me unconditionally and made my life incredibly easy. So that'd be something I'd like to tell my younger self. I think anyone who's in the event planning business, which is every SID, every person who's in this Hall of Fame and in this organization, but anyone who's in event planning, and especially one of this magnitude, knows that the planning that goes into every detail is quite extensive. Everything from security, ticketing, social media posts, merchandise sales, media access, of course, entertainment, corporate partner activation, fan engagement in the venue, plus the ancillary events outside of the venue, and of course, the game operations. But anyone in this line of work also knows that everything doesn't go as planned. The wireless goes out, inclement weather ruins what you've worked for, security gets breached, and despite the months of planning and site visits, and now of course in today's age, Zoom calls, there's likely going to be something that goes off script, or one thing you hadn't thought of that becomes a key learning moment for the next go around. And then you have those oh shoot moments, even though you might substitute the word shoot for something else. But I always think of again, going back to the 2016 championship game when Villanova's Chris Jenkins hit the buzzer beater to beat North Carolina for the title. It'll go down as one of the great tournament moments ever, and I was right there front and center to witness a moment that will live forever. But what I'll also remember is the confetti going off right afterwards, and like many of my colleagues in charge of staging the tournament, I thought, oh no, what are we going to do if there's a tenth of a second still left on the clock? I felt strongly that Chris got the shot off on time and was pretty sure the clock hit zero before the ball went through the net. But like those Tracy Morgan commercials that debuted at this year's Super Bowl. Do you want to go with Pretty Sure? No, of course not. So Pretty Sure isn't good enough when you're jumping out of an airplane. You think you might have a parachute attached to you, and it isn't good enough when a million pieces of confetti are on the court and there's still time on the clock. So it worked out in our favor because the officials reviewed the play, and in fact, there wasn't any time on the clock. But literally the next day, when we're typically catching up on sleep, instead we were having a conversation that resulted in new protocols involving the person pushing the button to release that confetti. So now fast forward to this year's tournament. We've planned for what was a most unique and challenging tournament that we hopefully ever have to stage. And despite the unprecedented challenges, now we've reached a point where we can see the finish line. It's Championship Monday. Gonzaga's team has tested negative for COVID-19 one final time. Baylor's team has done the same. All we have to do is throw the ball up, hope for a clean game, hand out a trophy, and we're finished. Well, several hours before the game, before any of the media were in the building or any of the fans have entered Lucas Oil Stadium, a malfunction causes confetti to fall onto the court, and it's everywhere. We're a couple of hours from the doors opening, and staff members and building personnel are sweeping confetti off the court, the benches, the stands. Someone finds a leaf blower, and that expedites the cleanup process, thankfully. And while the teams are literally during warm-ups and even during the national anthem, a handful of confetti pieces are falling from the sky. I don't think anyone noticed, but staff members were literally cutting the layup line to pick up confetti pieces 45 minutes before tip. So needless to say, I'm not a fan of confetti, but I am a fan of having a leaf blower in competition venues. Well, I've mentioned my wife Andrea and our sons Nicholas and Adam for all the sacrifice they make, especially during basketball season when I can't be as attentive as I'd like to because of the work hours. But certainly want to thank them, my immediate family, as well as my parents for raising me and allowing me to pursue something I wanted to do. And I mentioned Steve Eddington, who helped guide me on my way. I don't think there's enough bandwidth on the internet to adequately thank everyone who's been a huge influence and assisted me through the years. Certainly teachers and professors from high school and at Henderson State, along with administrators, coaches, and student athletes at Henderson, which is a place that's very dear to my heart. My first boss at the NCAA was Jim Wright. He's a CoSIDA Hall of Fame inductee. He has to get considerable credit or blame for hiring me. Past and present members of the media coordination and statistics staff, which is the group that I'm so proud to be part of and help lead. They're just terrific, second to none work ethic. They're really the SIDs of the national office. So I know there's great respect between our staff and CoSIDA, and we feel the respect back from the individual SIDs at the schools and conferences. Members of the men's basketball staff, members of the basketball committee, members of the Final Four media coordination committee, past and present, all the SIDs I just mentioned from the schools at and conferences from across all the divisions, the volunteers who help with media operations at all of our championships. We know that the volunteers are the backbone of the entire operation. I've been involved with track, soccer, College World Series, and men's basketball, and those volunteers are significant to the success of those events. Our championships operations staff, we work with them all the time to stage all 90 NCAA championships. And then finally, a big shout out to the Core 4 family. They know who they are. Those guys are the best.
From the NCAA, David Worlock.